I say, whoa now, y'all, it's your mans and them foul shotting, aka the Toothless Wonder, reporting on the Bamboozle Again News Network. Yo, it's so much going on, right? It can be very weighty on the spirit. Let me just hop right into it, you understand? So I caught some news about, the migrants, right? If we want to use that terminology, and how they're being housed in these, what I like to call internment camps, almost reminiscent of how it first started. When they had public, during Nazi Germany, when they initially, from my historical research, had public policy or public, whatever, initially for the extermination of the Ashkenazi European Jew, right? So, problem, reaction, solution. So they've been letting the people over here, right? Cheap labor. We all know this to be the case. And then, they say, oh, they're taking job, but I don't want no farm job. I ain't hopping up on nobody's roof. Not that I can't do it. I just don't want to. So they let them over here, cheap labor, whoop-de-whoop-de-woo. Then seemingly, as we're about to transition into the fourth industrial revolution, with robots, manufacturing, farming, AI, laser-generated meat, so on and so forth, the people aren't necessary then to the extreme right. Trump seems like a savior doing this mass deportation, right? Which in logistics, I said, how is he going to do that? Where is he going to get the manpower? Where are you going to house the people? You know what I'm saying? So from what I've been saying on the news, right, and through numerous, social media outlets, these people are being housed in less than humane conditions, a cup of water a day, they, no due process, so on and so forth. Like I said in previous videos, there are no new spirits, right? To me, this is the same spirit that was, especially during the ICE raids, right, where, they ICE pulling up papers, please. You know what I'm saying? That was, the term they used during Nazi Germany, when what the German government did was blame everything that the German people were going through on another group of people, not the people who were actually in charge and created and fostered the environment for you to complain about, right? So I was in very fervent prayer for my understanding, our fellow tribesmen of Israel, right? And I think and then you can't really know how true stuff is, right? But I'll say this, I think it's also just like the Marvin Sapp situation. I believe it's also like a public experiment to see how far desensitized are we to the plight of another human being, regardless of race, racial identity, sexual orientation. This is a human rights violation. Now, granted, United States go over earth and violate people's human rights, but this is being done on our soil. Then the tripping part is, because of this, the imposition of the crumbling of the matrix, right? You can, spread awareness, so on and so forth. But the mass public, and I kind of find myself in this as well. You're trying to stay afloat financially, stay on top of your bills, fight against all these other silent wars that are going on psychologically, spiritually, financially, geopolitically. You know what I mean? All this bombardment in the 24 news cycle. How much support can you actually render? And I think it's set up like the only thing I could do was really, truly pray for these people. You know what I'm saying? That the Most High cover. Because, okay, let's say hypothetically, they don't know who they are, right? Or there might be individuals who don't know who they are. Can they still get some grace and mercy if they're working hard? And I greatly admire the Hispanic, more so, those who come over here, right? Because with nothing, they still keep their family intact with zero money, yo. I've never seen, let's say, I don't know, the Nicaraguan woman and their family and them arguing in public, or they standing somewhere, let's say panhandling, and then she hop in the brother car who got the Benz. I've never seen that. They still got a sense of self and family. They struggle together. Here, where we can't struggle to do, well, we don't want no part of no struggle, even though we have probably the greatest ease of life, even though that's being eroded. As soon as we go through a small fraction of discomfort, everybody jumping ship, yo. That's a sad state of affairs. You know what I'm saying? For this to be almost the new reality that don't seem real. And it's not real because this world is temporal. That's why the only thing I could really do was go into prayer. Now, lo and behold, or let's say hypothetically, they ran that rhetoric on Negros and gangsterism. We need to round them up and do this and do that and the third. Like they're seemingly doing to these rapping dudes. Will we still have the same compassion? You see what I'm saying? But maybe not, because we don't love each other. Unless our love for somebody benefits us something. But just the sheer fact that we're a fellow human. But then by that same token, how many people walking around are still human in the genetic sense? With, the jab and, you know what I'm saying? It's a weird time, folks. I was catching also, now this is when I first seen the story, of course, allegedly, right? About, the rapping community had a terrible week last week. What was first? I think with the Rolling 60s indictment. It's so much going on. That was just last week and I can't remember it all. Then what else happened? Something about then we had the young Scooter brother who I talked about. Your demise is 39 years old running from the police because you was at a trap house. Now, I believe he was set up because according to police reports, some woman said she was being held hostage at this particular location, but there was no woman there. It seems like the system is either one sacrificing these brothers or putting them in the woo-wop in the crosshairs for them to feed and sacrifice each other. So I guess the latest one would be, the Saw Swagger, the brother from Houston. So my man Blue Hundo sent me a clip of that the alleged killer of his artist, who I didn't know, in Memphis, that's where he's from. This particular alleged killer was found unalived in Houston. Now, I'm a spiritual detective, right? So the first thing I respond back to my partner with is, what is a Memphis unaliver doing getting unalived way in Houston? What are you doing way over there? This is just conjecture. He do the job. They want to tie up loose ends. He goes out of state to Houston to pick up payment. Then he get crossed out to tie up the loose ends. But they'll still get investigated. And then here the trip part with cell phones and cameras everywhere. And they can probably hack my phone camera right now. You can't get away with them. It's almost like what's that, Judge Dredd, where there's CC cameras everywhere. Things that can pick up your voice. And what's that Minority Report where the camera can scan you and basically tell your emotions and the percentages of how likely you're to respond in XYZ situation. The technocracy has slowly been, built up around us in front of our face, but we can't see it because we're caught and diverted in the other direction of another false matrix. The word says that we're not to love the world or the things of the world. That's why I'm wondering why I really want nothing to do with the world. I ain't been listening to a whole bunch of news lately, in passing, but not really digging deep into it. Really haven't been very talkative lately. And now that the weather's broken, I've been spending a whole lot more time in nature and find that more, not purposeful, but find it more invigorating and charging to thine soul. You see what I'm saying? The nature, the quietness of the tomfoolery and chicanery that is seemingly coming off a conveyor belt on a daily basis, hitting you with information overload, with frivolous information. Again, as I routinely talk about here in Maryland, we're probably experiencing healthcare apocalypse. Maybe they put in some stopgap measures, but I believe the next fiscal year starts in July. And here's what's crazy. Government people who own, operate, and run these various institutions, they don't know what's going on. Here's what's crazy. As I talked about, and this is one of my talking points, the leadership ain't leading, the inspiration ain't inspiring. How do the people in charge don't know what's going on? They're in the dark. The blind leading the blind. Now what we've seen come full circle is the deceivers, they themselves being deceived. But I ain't, and I'll tie it and sum all this up, right? So, I mean, Kyle, what do you do? I mean, in my personal, I do practice a certain amount of detachment to outcomes, right? But I'm done. And it's like I say, you got to work on it, right? Or be mindful of it, right? But the affairs of this world, the affairs of this life, what is it? The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Now I'm starting to see what that means. First of all, it's not real. Check me out, please. So, of course, finance, I'm trying to use finance as a resource to live a better quality of life or be able to produce so I don't have to deal with rising energy prices, so on and so forth, right? And I've darn near about, I don't want to say giving up. I practice some level of acceptance, right? Check me out, right? So today, early, I found like some reels about a brother, and I've been heard this talking point, and I believe it to be true, where like if you get a whole life insurance policy, you can basically become your own bank, and how to create, let's say, I forgot the proper terminology, but it's almost like a self-something trust where you don't own it, but you own the company or the entity that owns this, that, and the third, and whoop, de whoop, de whoop, whoop, right? So that's a way of kind of skirting taxes or not having to necessarily pay a whole bunch of money in taxes on capital gains, so on and so forth. Sounds great. I had the intellectual knowledge to do it. However, and maybe in my over-intellectualization, here's where I kind of maybe possibly, right? Let's say I do all that. I'm still putting my finance in a sanctioned entity that the government run, hold, and is an oversight of. And then I'm putting, fiat currency called the United States dollar bill, but it's still subject to inflation. It's still subject to being confiscated by the government or these austerity measures or what is it called? Capital limits where the bank or whatever tell you what. They just keep moving the goalposts whenever it suits them. So now I'm truly of the belief and been of it just to a greater degree that you can't even use money to escape something. Just like I said in the previous video, there is power in the quote unquote black dollar, right? But we value the wrong stuff. So even though we have all this money, we're still powerless, right? But how much power can you have in captivity and then use the oppressor's money to finance your liberation if you had to put the said money in his institution? Yeah, that's why I'm even more to a degree, we're not getting out of this until in the Most High's timing when he get good and ready, yo, because we can't war our way out of it. We can't make our money, or we can't get enough money to make our way out of it. I'm talking about, as a mass of people, or even those who may be enlightened or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? You can't, maybe in small clusters or something like that. It's no way out, not out of defeat, but out of acceptance of the spiritual reality that we find ourselves in. Anytime, if you look in scripture, at no point in time had them people ever been able to get out of their situation that the Most High set to order under their own volition. Ain't nothing happened. And again, when I read, I believe in the story of Joseph and in the story of Maccabees, when Joseph tried to put a play together to get himself out of incarceration, and I think the tribe of Levi, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were attempting to go to war with some tribe that was the Egyptians' enemy, maybe to garner their favor, and maybe they could get, a more favorable outcome that way. And in both instances, it stuck out to me. It said God punished them in reference to Joe. I believe he left him in jail another 3 years because he tried to circumvent his natural process through your own intellect, and I'm guilty of that myself. So I'm not going to say I've given up. I practice. Now I'm like, okay, I've surrendered like drugs and alcohol, right? Now I'm accepting or putting on the altar of the Most High my desires as noble and practical and natural as they may be. Let's say Joseph, right? He goes through what, put in the pit, he's in Potiphar's house, now he in, prison, right? I'm pretty sure as a young stunner coming up in the game, he probably wanted some companionship. But let's say, or let's say he attempted to get that companionship outside of the trajectory of the path that the Most High has set. He'd have never got to be essentially the prime minister of Egypt, even though it seemed natural and it seemed justified, or it seemed like it would ease his pain or his loneliness or whatever the case may be. We pray this prayer, or we should, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. And I'll be honest, I've had an issue with implementation as far as my will. You know what I'm saying? Like, why can't I get this trade? Why, whoop de woo, or blah, 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 right? Because obviously and evidently it's not the Most High will if I've never been able to facilitate simple stuff that everybody else do haphazardly without a second thought. That's not his will for me. And I got to get all right with that, and I got to accept it. Because if it's his will, if I can be patient, it's actually greater than anything I could contrive in my limited mind. You understand me? So now I'm totally, of course it's daily struggle, right? But I'm just more mindful of it. I've cast all my burdens upon the Most High, right? Whether it be financial, whether it be relational, circumstantial. Because if I remember correctly, it is all my struggles that gave me the skill set to not only operate in a way that I've never operated with nobody teaching me, but then able to hop on YouTube, as I say, I'm not the talkative type, and come to and give you a spiritual message based on practical application and news we see on a day-to-day basis. What else is there? And not even on doom and gloom. It's going to get worse. This is the tip of the iceberg. That's the tip of the iceberg. So am I going to look at the storm, or will I keep my focus on Yeshua in the midst of the storm around me? And on that note, I'm signing off. One love, baby. Ooh.